Hey everybody, Mr. O here, and we are doing week 3 daily geography. This one is called the 4 hemispheres, and of course I know that because I can look up at my title. It's called the 4 hemispheres. If I look for the 5 elements, I don't see as many elements on this one as some maps. I can see that I do have a title. I'm looking for a legend, and I don't really see one on. I think that these 2 small globes right here and right here are going to show kind of an inset type of thing, but that's really it. And so we're talking about 4 hemispheres. We of course know those as the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, the western hemisphere, and the eastern hemisphere. If we're going to talk about hemispheres, 2 items come into play right away, and that's usually the equator and the prime meridian, because those 2 are used to divide them into a northern and a southern hemisphere. So if we take a look at this one, and we can see that we've got our equator line right there. My line's not exactly perfect, but here's our equator, and then we can see above that is the northern hemisphere, and then we can see below that is the southern hemisphere. And so this line divides the Earth basically in half, with the northern above it and the southern below it. And the same holds true with the prime meridian over here. We've got the prime meridian, and then that's going to divide it into an eastern side, and it's going to divide it into a western side. And so those 2 lines are important when we talk about hemispheres, because they really do the dividing or the splitting up into these hemispheres. You'll see that on Monday's question. It basically asks you what does the equator divide, or which 2 hemispheres does the equator divide into, and you know, we just went over that. And so if you were paying attention, you got it, and if not, it's a great opportunity for you to kind of rewind and take a look at it. We also should know where we live and its place in the hemispheres, and of course we live in North America, so I'm going to kind of put an X right there. And you know, it's not too difficult to solve this problem. It says for Tuesday number 1, North America is part of which 2 hemispheres? Well, this one's simple. The first one is the Western Hemisphere, because I can see North America on the globe called Western Hemisphere. And really the only thing I have to do is go to another globe and see if I can find another placement of North America. And I don't see North America on this one. It's called the Eastern Hemisphere. If I go down to the Southern Hemisphere, I don't see North America there. If I go up to the Northern Hemisphere, I do see North America. So my 2 answers for which 2 hemispheres North America is in would be the Western Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere. So you know, that's not too hard to figure out. You should be able to easily take a look at these globes, spot North America because it is labeled, and then just look at the label of the globe that it's under. This one, of course, is marked and labeled Northern Hemisphere, and this one is marked and labeled Western Hemisphere. So shouldn't be too difficult. Australia is another one that we've talked about a couple times. And we need to kind of, if we take a look at this, figure out where Australia might be, because there is a question on that. I can see Australia right here, and I can see Australia right here. And so now all I need to do is look at my labels to see which 2 hemispheres that is. You know, just to double check my work, I can look over here in the Northern Hemisphere, and I don't really see Australia. I can look over in the Western Hemisphere, and I don't really see Australia. So yeah, I kind of check my work, and those are the 2 that I'm comfortable with, so that can be my answer. Wednesday is talking about Asia, and it's located in which directions from the equator and which from the prime meridian. So you know, it's easier for me when I do this to either start with a Western Hemisphere or an Eastern Hemisphere. And since we're talking about Asia, I'm going to start with the Eastern Hemisphere, just simply because I can see Asia a little bit more. It's saying, is it north or south of the equator? And so I know from some of my past experience that the equator, and this line might not be perfect, but the equator basically divides the Earth in half that way. And so if I look at Asia, Asia is going to be above that line. And I know that on maps, north is referred to as up or above. And so Asia is going to be north of the equator for this one. And then it's also asking the same question about whether or not it's east or west of the prime meridian. And so you know, I can kind of take a look at the prime meridian over here, I can see that the prime meridian kind of goes through part of Africa. I can see that Africa is way over there, so I'm not going to be perfect with this, but I think that my prime meridian may be that way. So that, of course, is going to make Asia this direction from the prime meridian. And if I do my north and my south and my east and my west compass rose, which I should know as a sixth grader, I can tell that this direction is east, and so it's going to be east of the prime meridian. So, I'm just using basic tools like the compass rose and the equator and prime meridian just to figure out these problems, all of which I should know as a sixth grader. Wednesday number 2, does the equator cross the northern or southern part of South America? So if we find the equator, and we can kind of look from this that it goes just through South America, kind of right there. That's a terrible line. But the question is it the northern or the southern part of South America? And again, north, south, east, and west, that's the upper part. And of course, with maps, that means north. So it's got to be the northern part. South America, keeping on that subject, it's part of 2 hemispheres as well. And the obvious one is Western Hemisphere. We just worked on that. And if I find South America on another map, I can see it over there on the Southern Hemisphere map. So those are the 2 hemispheres that the Southern Hemisphere is in. Pretty easy. Again, I'm just solving that by looking to see the labeled South America. If we move on to Thursday, in which hemisphere is the North Pole located? Boy, I hope nobody misses this. This is very, very simple. And so we can see the North Pole right here, and that's labeled Northern Hemisphere. Of course, it's at the top, which is the north. Which ocean is closest to the North Pole? We haven't talked about this too much, the oceans. We're starting to talk about the oceans a little bit more, but I can see that there's an Arctic Ocean labeled almost right next to or by the North Pole. So that one should be pretty simple too. If we talk about Antarctica, Antarctica is a little bit interesting in that it is in a lot of these hemispheres. And if I'm looking at the Western Hemisphere, just my background knowledge tells me that Antarctica is down there someplace. And in the Eastern Hemisphere, same thing, can kind of see it on this globe. If I'm looking at the Southern Hemisphere, I can see it very easily. But if I flip it from a top down and look at the Northern Hemisphere, I don't see Antarctica. So that would be the only one in which it doesn't have any land. When we do talk about oceans, we're kind of talking about, we talk about the Pacific Ocean all the time. We talk about the Atlantic Ocean all the time. The Indian Ocean we've discussed, and the Arctic Ocean we've discussed. And if you count that up, that's 4. But a lot of times we'll kind of add a 5th. Geographers will add a 5th, and that's kind of the area towards the bottom, which is the Southern Ocean, and that's something that we should kind of keep in mind if we're talking about oceans. And again, if we ask you to name 5 oceans, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. Africa has land in both Eastern and the Western hemispheres. Africa is also part of the Eastern Hemisphere. Why? And so, basically, if we look and we can see that we've got the dividing line for the prime meridian right here. And so we do have kind of this part of Africa in the west, and we have kind of the rest of it in the east. It's got, it's in both spots. Why do we consider it part of the Eastern Hemisphere? Let's not make this too complicated. The answer is going to be because most of it is to the east, and that's why we'll go with kind of the majority. So there we go. I think that covers most of the topics that we're going to see on this week's warm-up. I encourage you to watch this early in the week. I'm going to post it either on the weekend or the beginning of the week. Watch it right when it becomes live to you. And then I also would follow up with a Thursday viewing. That's because the night before we're going to grade this, you'll have seen all the questions, you'll have put down some answers, and you can compare what you answered to what is on the video, and it just kind of helps as a refresher. So that's a little tip there. Those who are watching these videos are doing a better job grade-wise, And so that's also a reason. So thanks for tuning in.